Oh my goodness. First trailer for Terminator Dark Fate, the highly anticipated sequel to some of the Terminator films. We'll get into that, because look, we're here to do a trailer breakdown. We're going to be talking about the timeline, details on this new Terminator, information on the new characters, including what's going on with Mackenzie Davis. Is she a Terminator? Is she not be a Terminator? The return of Sarah Connor, what role Arnold will play, plus also stuff not covered in this trailer, like where the hell is John Connor? Anyways, potential spoilers, and if you would be so kind as to leave a like, that would help me out greatly. It's nearly as good as money. It's not as good as money, but still, it's pretty good. Right, timeline. So you may have heard this already, but basically this acts as a sequel, a direct sequel to Terminator 2. So forget what you know from Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, and forget what you know about Terminator the Sarah Connor Chronicles. That's all gone. Salvation, Genesis, forget about it. They weren't that well received. People generally don't like them or are pretty lukewarm on them. So yeah, this is kind of like a Highlander 3 situation where they ignore the events of Highlander 2, if you understand that reference. Right, let's do some frame-by-frame stuff. Okay, we know that this movie is going to be set in both Mexico City and the US, with maybe some stuff on the border. We see a bit of that later in the trailer. And we've got some new cast members. Natalia Reyes as Danny Ramos, Mackenzie Davis as Grace, a person or robot from the future. We'll get to that. And this guy who you don't need to worry about because he explodes. One of the big takeaways from this trailer is the new Terminator model. It's referred to as the Rev 9, which means they're moving away from the T whatever series. There's been speculation that this could refer to Revelations 9, which is a passage all about the apocalypse and death and falling stars and shit. It's got lines like, when he opened the abyss, smoke rose from it like the smoke from a gigantic furnace. The sun and sky were darkened by the smoke from the abyss. So yeah, it seems there's kind of some Judgment Day parallels there. Anyway, this new Terminator model, played by Gabriel Luna, who actually did a lot of training with Arnold to get himself ready for the role, is kind of a combination of both the T-1000 and the T-800. Kind of like the TX from Terminator 3, the one that doesn't count anymore. The difference here obviously being that the liquid metal and the solid metal can entirely separate and operate independently. Or at the very least, one controls the other, because the skeleton appears to be missing the back of its head. And if you've ever seen Terminator 2, the extended cut or even a deleted scene, that's where the T-800 model keeps their CPU, which is basically everything they know and can do. So yeah, this kind of begs the question, if you kill one, does it kill the other? I would say probably not. But what I like about this, because I haven't been super wrapped with a bunch of the new Terminator models, is that you got the best of both worlds from the first two Terminators. That we saw in the movies at least, not like in canon. You got the durability of the T-800 and the fluidity of the T-1000. Though there are weaknesses associated with those two that are compensated for when they're together. One of those weaknesses being, well, you can break the T-800. And if you freeze and shatter and reheat the T-1000, it can't start to malfunction, which again was in the extended cut of Terminator 2. Okay, so Mackenzie Davis is playing Grace. This seems similar to the idea from Terminator Salvation, where we got the TH, which is basically a human Terminator hybrid. Unlike that particular Sam Worthington model, which again is no longer canon, I'd say this probably is a result of the Resistance and not Skynet. Yeah, I think the metal mesh that we see underneath her skin was implanted, because you can see she's got scars all over her body, where perhaps the skin was peeled back and the mesh was inserted. They might have even enhanced her skeletal structure, because we see that she can easily break out of handcuffs. So yeah, I think she is a Resistance fighter, just tweaked a bit so she can go hand to hand with a Terminator. Sarah Connor is back for the first time since Terminator Salvation. She was going to be in Rise of the Machines, but she was like, this story isn't very good and I don't want to do it. And I probably have enough money by now. But she does do some voiceover work in Salvation, if you remember. Probably not, it's not particularly memorable. But it is really exciting to see her back. I think one of the elements that was missing from the other Terminator films, which was looked over by those who made them, was that Sarah Connor is a much more interesting character than John Connor. Or at least that's the way that I've seen it. The only version of John Connor that I find particularly engaging is the silent version we get in Terminator 2 in a flash forward to the future. Every other version I'm like, yeah, alright, okay. But yeah, we don't really know what she's been up to. I mean, clearly she's been training, and it looks like doing chin-ups and smoking cigarettes, which is the dream, you know? Maybe she actually saw the highway chase, saw that the Terminator was involved, and then brought herself back into the fray. We don't know. Also, where's John Connor? We also don't know that, but I'll come back to it. Okay, here's something that I like about this trailer, which I think on the whole is not a great trailer. I still have pretty high hopes for this movie, considering who's involved. And now they've talked about, you know, bringing it back to the original two and whatever. I mean, they all say that, but this time maybe they mean it. Or maybe I'll fall for it again, I don't know. But yeah, every Terminator trailer since Terminator 2 has spoiled the twist in relation to the allegiance of the Terminator. It's always in the marketing material. Don't believe me? Well, various clips I have prepared say otherwise.
Once, he was programmed to destroy the future. Now, his mission...
Get down.
...is to protect it.
TX has corrupted my system.
Desire is irrelevant. I am a machine.
You think you're human? I'm the only hope you have.
What have they done to my son?
Survival was what you taught me.
Okay, we got James Cameron back. He does have a story credit on this, but so do a bunch of other people. And of course, his involvement and endorsement, it doesn't necessarily mean much. Like, how heavily is he involved? More so than the previous three, that's for certain. But yeah, he gave Terminator Genisys a big ol' stamp of approval.
The new film, which in my mind I think of as the third film, I feel like the franchise has been reinvigorated. Like this is a renaissance. If you like the Terminator films,
I'll be back.
you're gonna love this movie.
But I feel like maybe he just watched the first 15 minutes and went, this is a lot like my movie.
So I'm in a dark theater, movie starts, and I start to see things I recognize.
I like the first 15 minutes of Genisys also, so there you go. Right, this scene here was fleshed out at CinemaCon, I believe, earlier this year in March, that has Mackenzie Davis arrive and then attack some cops as she's defending a couple. Also, this is, of course, directed by Tim Miller, known for Deadpool, but he's also got a background in filmmaking and CGI and special effects and a bunch of stuff. I didn't love Love, Death, and Robots. I thought some were good-ish, and a lot of them were not as good, like a lot of flash and not necessarily a lot of substance. And I know he was heavily involved in that. But still, I think at this point, having him on board is a good thing. Right, there's this moment here where they're like, Sarah Connor, why are you helping us? And she's like, well, you know, I was her once. Talking about Danny Ramos, referring back to, of course, the first Terminator where she's on the run. Does that mean that she's pregnant? Not Sarah Connor. Probably not at this point, but the Danny character, obviously she'd have a pivotal role in relation to Judgment Day, whether it be she's a soldier herself, or a scientist, or the mother of somebody important. We don't know at this point. And of course, they kind of downplayed in the trailer, but we get the return of Arnold Schwarzenegger as Carl Draperies. No, that's a van. No, that's not his name, probably. Can you imagine if this guy's name was really Carl? That doesn't seem to fit, does it? But yeah, there's been speculation and talk that this version of the character is the human template for the T-800 model, which makes sense to me. Also, if you've seen any of the deleted scenes from Rise of the Machines, we've met the human template of the T-800 before in William Candy.
Hi, I'm Chief Master Sergeant William Candy. I was honored to be selected by CRS.
This isn't even canon in Terminator 3, but still it's a fun little... Fun? It's an interesting kind of, I get what they're doing, but I can see why they also took this out.
I don't know about that accent.
We can fix it.
Now, in addition to playing this character, Carl Draperies, there's also going to be flashbacks to apparently the early 90s to just after Terminator 2, or around that time. We're going to be getting a younger Arnold. They got the body double back, who played him in, I think, Genisys. And they've also got a body double for John Connor. They're going to actually be taking Edward Furlong's face, not literally, he's probably using it, but digitally putting it on this kid. But again, that brings me back to, where is John Connor? I think it's entirely possible that he's dead, and Sarah Connor is going to end up as the leader of the resistance, because somebody has to do it. Now, if we're getting flashbacks to the early 90s, maybe they send back a T-800 to kill John Connor, because he had that relationship with one of the models, and that's a good way to lure him in. That's actually how the model of Terminator ended up murdering him in Rise of the Machines. So yeah, as far as I know, they haven't cast anybody as John Connor. That's not to say there isn't an adult John Connor out there kind of running around, but there hasn't really been any word on that. So yeah, I think he's dead, but we'll see. Now, Mackenzie Davis said something really interesting about the movie. A while back, she said that it ties into the first two movies in a way that's really important. The whole scene with the blade on the table. Beyond that, I'm kind of scared to talk about this movie. And for those who remember, Sarah Connor carves no fate into the table. And there's a whole sequence where it's like, you know, the future's not set. There's no fate but what we make for ourselves. Talking about how the things that will happen are constantly in flux and they can be altered. Also, the idea of Terminator 2 was that they stopped Judgment Day. But I guess, like all Terminator sequels, they didn't really. They just postponed it to whatever year that movie ends up coming out, whether that be 2003 or 2015, if you love Terminator Genisys. So yeah, look, I don't think this is going to be as good as the other Terminator films. Well, the first two, I should say. But I'm hoping it's at least better than the other sequels. I also have a question though. Are they going to say the name Dark Fate in the actual movie? Because you know, in every Terminator movie, they actually say the name of the movie in the movie. And again, I have video evidence of this.
Skynet. Judgment Day.
Talk to them.
Rise of the Machines. Also, and stop me if you've heard this before, but this is going to be the first in a trilogy of Terminator films. Terminator Salvation was also going to be the first of a trilogy of Terminator films. And Terminator Genisys was also going to be the first of a trilogy of Terminator films. I mean, this is probably more likely to happen than those, because they didn't happen and aren't happening, but we'll see. Obviously, it greatly depends on how this one does. But I'm not sure this trailer did a good enough job at selling it to people, because it looks just like, oh yeah, same old kind of... It looks more like Terminator Genisys in parts than, say, the first Terminator, which is what apparently they were going for. I don't know, but we'll have to see. Anyways, is there anything from this trailer that you noticed? Or what did you think of it, actually? I'm kind of more curious about that. Where do people stand on this franchise? Do you like any of the sequels? I kind of like Rise of the Machines. I know it's not great, but I think there's some good stuff in that movie. Also, there's videos here every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, so subscribe if you want to see any of that. And of course, this Monday on my podcast, The Weekly Planet, where we talk movies and comics and TV shows, we'll be talking more about Terminator Dark Fate, as well as the news of the week. We're doing the Game of Thrones finale, the new Aladdin movie, Brightburn. There's a whole lot going on. I'll link that below, but swing on by if you want to check it out. It's a good commute to work kind of thing if you want some hot movie topics in your ears. All right, but thanks for watching this. I appreciate it. Take care.